Good morning, all of you. Thank you so much for joining Neuworldz Beyond the Headlines series panel discussions with global Indians. Here are our panel of speakers today. To start with you, Shashank sir, to ask your opinion and this whole thing, because you bring over 3 decades of your experience, not only with the army, but especially in these counterterrorism actions that our army has been doing. A lot of these, sometimes we don't even know as civilians. So please pour some light on that and, share some of these incidences and experiences.
Thank you so much, Shrravonii, and my greetings to my fellow panelists. Along, we would probably discuss facets connected to the recent happenings, Pahalgam, and last about 15 days, 12 days, whatever. But as far as now, since the keynote what Shrravonii gave was about humanity. So in general, I feel and my experience endorses my conviction that Indian Army, wherever we have been fighting insurgency or terrorism, now insurgency is called as terrorism. Insurgency is no more referred to in the official lexicon. So it is about people. People we have considered as the center of gravity when we are fighting insurgents and the terrorists. And classical teaching of counterinsurgency and counterterrorism also advocates that it is the local population which is the center of gravity, and the government or the dispensation or the security forces always try to or always make an attempt to win over the people onto their side, which we normally abbreviate as WHAMP, or winning hearts and minds of the people. And it is the people who are the efforts by the insurgents and the terrorists is also to win over the confidence of the people. So people are center of gravity. But over a period of time, what has started happening is like even post Pahalgam and then Operation Sindoor, which is still on, by the way, as per the government statement issued as late as a couple of hours back. The narrative which the agency of people should hold has receded to the background. Like whenever there is a ceasefire violation or whenever there is firing by either belligerent army, it is the people on the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir who come onto the firing line. They are the first to join the battle and last to leave the battle. And for the mainstream media, for the rest of the country, the ceasefire violations on the line of control have become, kind of a new normal. Once ceasefire, of course, was declared yesterday at the behest of whosoever, that probably we may take up later. But the ceasefire on the LC or on the LOC, as we call it, has become a new normal, which is slightly sad. We are not, reaching out to the people, because ultimately solution to insurgency and terrorism, at least in our context, be it J&K, be it the Northeast, or be it, the central India where Naxal or Maoist challenges, being waged against the government. It has to be the people from where the solution will emerge. So, and, being a military, former military official, I vouch for it that at times we go high-handed. I am not saying the use of minimum force, etc., is always our ethos. But at times we go high-handed in the run, or in the race to kill a terrorist or militant. And in the bargain, the interest of the people suffer and the things keep on multiplying. So I'll finish as an introductory remark at that, and maybe specific aspects of the present or the current unfoldings we can discuss as we move ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll ask you a little additional to that, because you did mention this very, very essentially that, the people are the center, they are always the center of focus. And the Indian Army, I mean, despite the fact that there has been repeated cases, and it's Pahalgam has just happened now. It has happened for years. There have been cases where, 2008, the Mumbai attacks, the Uri attacks, the Pulwama attacks. Apart from that, even there are cases where Captain Saurabh Kalia, he and his men were captured and they were tortured brutally for 40 days. Several other incidents that happened in our armies have been uh, fighting and giving extreme sacrifices for years and years. Why is this continuing for such a long time? And why is suddenly the world so surprised when India has just decided that we have had enough? What is that?
All right. One is, of course, the support from Pakistan, which we are, badly affected by. And second is, our approach to resolving these challenges. We have, like in Jammu and Kashmir, if we're talking about, in the year 2007, 2008, things were pretty okay. But still, the dispensation, the armed forces, and I was very much part of the big picture there. We carried on with, our previous or practice modus operandi. We did not, alter our approach. So it is, varying our approach is very important, because always, we cannot straitjacket our approach. And as I said, of course, Pakistan is there, but we could have made, Pakistan irrelevant by investing into Kashmiri. We only are talking about Kashmir as a real estate.
Correct.
Seldom, you will hear talks about, Kashmir as and belonging to Kashmiri. So that probably is the ground zero of the problem, which I have experienced and uh, maybe made out of. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your views there, sir. I'm going to move over to Major Rakesh Sharma, sir. What have been your experiences? You have also, served in Kargil. You have also been part of a lot of community service thing after your retirement from the army. What has been your experience like, and what is your thoughts around this whole thing that we are facing right now? So, you're speaking on mute.
Yeah, first of all, greetings of the day to all the panelists and especially my senior colleagues from the army. And it's always a great pride to interact and learn from the fellow panelists. See, I'll tell you that in a historical perspective, if we have to see, then as a society and as a nation, uh, you go back to history, humanity has always topped our mindset. The course which you've taken over a period of time, uh, this is one aspect that it has been uh, as a society, as a country, uh, like Sazad sir just mentioned that we could have done more in terms of handling the militancy or the change scenario in Kashmir. Uh, so my read of the situation, current situation, is that in fact one of the thing which we missed is that we thought that we've got the normalcy, everything is fine, and we left the door opens unguarded, and that is what has resulted in what we saw as Pahalgam. Because obviously there was lacunas, there were things were uh, the required security was not there. Obviously there was we found lacking on that. There are multiple things which one can say. This is also in a way that we're trying to project to the world that we are quite humane and everything is normal, and look, all the localites in Kashmir, they're having a great time, great business, some millions of tourists flowing into Kashmir. So that is also to do with our mindset, our the way we function. So having said that, I'll also relate it to when we were in Kargil, I was a very young captain at that point of time, and you won't believe that we're holding our horses and we're itching to cross the LOC, but India, our political leadership and everybody else had strict orders. There's nothing to do. You can't be going around. We've conducted the operations.
Across the LOC, yeah.
Yeah, the objective of the operation. and you can't go. It is also that phase. Otherwise, if we were a belligerent society, a belligerent army, then we would have conducted ourselves the way the Pakis conduct. That's one point. Similarly, here, if you see from last 2 days since the ceasefire has been announced, so you will see that half of our country, our nation, they are wanting to go ahead. Everybody is gung ho that why to stop. Some people are talking that you have snatched the this thing from the jaws. You've snatched the defeat from the jaw of the victory. I heard some statements on social media and there, but I'm telling you very honestly that if I have to think as a balanced mind, as a reasonable mind, then my objective of this particular operation are met. I don't want to be inhuman, punishing not only them, but we have to eventually understand the repercussions of a long waged war. So the government was very clear. The military leadership who handled these operations, they are very clear that we don't want to do any collateral damage. We don't want to, bombard the civilian locations. Like if you see what has happened with us, our LOs, Sir just mentioned that the people around the IB and LOC, what happened at Punch, what happened at various locations in Jammu, they didn't think even once that why should we hit the civilian population. But we are a mindset which has always focused on humanity first, and probably I will not say that it is a major reason, but when you ask that question that why it is not ending, why it is prolonging, why it is repeating, why it is going on, because that typical military approach which is required to handle those things, we don't completely kind of enforce us in that manner. There's always there will be always a hype of operations, but then there will be a lull. We'll give a chance, we'll give humanity to come up. We've army has been doing, sirs would be know, and I've been part of those projects of Bhavana and all those things. So many things we do. For I remember my days that those. I'm quoting the people out there in the heart of Kashmir and an area which was full of militancy. We created such a situation that the local populace they used to come to me. I'm talking about 2001 2002. They used to come to me and they used to tell me कि मेजर साहब एक काम कीजिए, आप फौज छोड़ दीजिए, आप हमारे लिए इलेक्शन लड़िए.
Mhm.
Those people wanting you to come and help you that manner. So that is human approach, that is has been very important to us. And of course, I will be very very open to say that the militancy, especially in J&K, the terrorism, it will always be a challenge. We always have to think 2 steps ahead. This Palgam should be a great great lesson for us. We need to learn from it. Till the time in our neighboring country, the army owns the country and not vice versa. Till the time this situation over there
Yeah.
it doesn't change, you
Yes.
will always have some of the other problem.
Such
Because
issues.
they have to, if they have to keep their shop open in Pakistan, then they have to demonstrate that look, India is a threat to us. J&K is our jugular vein. Kind of the chief army chief kind of statements is giving there. So they are giving you a clear cut message that we'll not let it go. And when that we should never be, never ever should let our guard down, and never ever should think that normalcy is back. It's not going to happen. Thank you so much.
I agree. I agree a lot to what you're saying. And sir, I just want to just specify this. When I talk about humanity, I don't mean we put our arms down and just talk about peace. That's not going to happen because in our
True.
if we go back to our traditional things, there is always that Dev Lok and Asur Lok thing. You have to be strong against the Asur. If
True.
somebody is wrong, you cannot talk peace. You probably have to teach them a lesson in a language they understand. And like
Yes.
you said, we cannot probably relax back because if I'm not wrong, back in 99, the Kargil issue also happened because of something similar because we thought as a understanding we will not take our we will not be in the posts which is basically in a very frigid zone at that point of time in minus 50 degrees centigrade, but it was the insurgency that happened and that led to the war. Probably it's also the similar things like you said where in Pahalgam we thought it is back in peace, but it was not. Why is this trust issue constantly being played with? I'm going to toss this over to you, Colonel Sherville. A little different perspective that we can bring in, or similarly around the lines. How would you like to give your thoughts on that? It has been repeatedly, India has been attacked over and over and over period of time on this one thing, which is probably like a which is not getting resolved. And it is just costing us a lot of time, money, energy, resource, and lives. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah, I'm asking you this question and you're on mute. So can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so, I mean, look, I mean, this is, it's a historical problem to start with. And, it's been going on. We've had so many wars fought over this particular terrain and territory, starting from 1947 onwards. Uh, Militancy is something much more recent, say from the 1990s. I feel that it is not just a people problem. It's to do with the governments. It's to do with the polity in Pakistan. The way that country is run. It depends upon who's in charge. While yes, we always say that the army has a major say out there. But you've had opportunities wherein you've had a democratically elected government, or so they say, has also come into the picture. But you've had, various kinds of leaders, whether they are hardliners, whether they are moderates. Uh, and keeping the Kashmir issue alive is literally, kind of justifying their existence. Tomorrow, if let's say Kashmir doesn't happen, then they are not able to justify their existence.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a perennial problem. Uh, for us, I was there also during the peak of militancy during 2000, 2001. Uh, the ecosystem in JNK per se, and I'm sure, my fellow panelists who've also been there would also agree that, it's become a vicious circle. And, you have people lured by the power of the gun. They feel that money is not coming into them. They don't have employment opportunities, but they're not willing to work for it. It's not that there are not employment opportunities. In fact, I
Yeah.
think the government of India spends the maximum, or rather pumps in the maximum money into J&K as a state if you compare it to the rest of the country. But that money doesn't get down to the lower level. So they have an easy excuse to say that, oh, well, there is unemployment. So here I am getting, I'm going to get paid and I'm going to live the good life, and the power of the gun it has. But, not many of them realize that, this circle finishes with them dying. One of the idioms which, when we were there in the valley, and it's always remained true, is that from the day you become a militant, the lifespan of a militant is from literally 2 days to 2 years. He always is going to get taken care of, or 90% of them get taken care of during this particular window. But there is still amount of, militancy is not getting over. Yeah, you may have phases where you feel that, okay, a lot of tourism is happening, things have got controlled, Article 370, various steps have been taken by the government. But at the end of the day, it's a lot dictated by what's happening across the border. A lot of brainwashing happens. A kind of a narrative is created. Young minds are impressionable minds are just twisted. I can give an example of some young boys who were being lured to cross over into Pakistan for militant training, and they have been given all kinds of brainwashing in terms of how poor the condition of Muslims is in India, and their own poor condition in the valley, and they were given all kinds of incentives that their families will be looked after, and the power of the gun and the kind of power it brings in.
Mhm.
But the downside of it was not known to them. So fortunately, we got to know that these guys, through some sources, were planning to go across and were waiting for one of their handlers to take them across. So I brought them in, and brought them to my headquarters. All we did was show them photographs of some militants who had passed away, or rather had been killed. Let me put it that way, in an operation. When they saw those photographs, that was it. They didn't need to do anything else, and all of them decided they didn't want to go. So that, like I said, it's a narrative which is drawn. It's a vicious circle, and unless and until we take very strong steps, whether it is politically, militarily, this is not going to get resolved. And irrespective of whether we have those good phases, like where we said there we have thousands of tourists going to JNK and things are normal, no, they're not going to be normal. They are going to keep coming up, and it has various agendas, whether it is a political agenda, whether it's a military agenda, diplomatic agenda. So it's going to be there till you actually take very, very strong steps. Yeah.
True. I really appreciate you touched upon, where there's this constant narrative, there's a lot of brainwashing, people, impressionable minds are actually impacted like that. And so now toss it over to Mrs. Priya Prashant. You're an academician, you're a teacher, you actually have been, creating young minds turn into brilliant, whatever. What do you think as a teacher, that like that young impressionable age where people are literally in their single digits when they actually start seeing the world through the eyes of the teacher? How does that kind of have been playing a role in shaping people who are for the nation? And then again, these kind of folks who are like from a very young age, they take up terrorism, they take up anti-national kind of agendas. Can you throw some light on that aspect?
Yeah, sure. See, I have seen a lot of changes in the students whom I have taught earlier, maybe 10, 15 years back, and the children I'm teaching now. Okay. Earlier, they had the sense of nationalism in them. But now, slowly over the time, I don't know why, maybe to some extent, I might say parenting, it is going away from the students, that sense of love for their country. When we were students, we were all put into NCC in our school. Now, if you ask them, from Fort William, the chief had come to our school so that he can motivate the students to join NCC. We started getting letters from the parents saying that we don't want our daughters to join NCC. The reason is she has other work to do, she has tuitions, she gets tired, But our parents and parents who were there earlier, they never used to think it this way. And another thing is, like I keep telling the students that you go to shopping malls almost every weekend. Can you tell me whose house is opposite Forum Mall? Okay. Now, most of them could not answer. So I just gave them a hint that he's a very famous personality and he played a very important role in our freedom struggle. Can you tell me who? First, when I said very famous personality, their answer was, "Miss, is it Babe? The film actor." Then I said, "No, a very famous personality. He took part in the freedom struggle and he played a very important role, etc., etc." Then we came to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his famous house from where he escaped. All these things were told or were taught to us by our parents. We did not learn it from any book. But now I feel parenting plays a very important role. We should sometimes tell our students, our children, about these great personalities. So this is one difference I found because, to them heroes are Salman and Shah Rukh, not
Feel that real.
soldiers.
Correct. So very, very true. I mean, I think it has been some kind of a degenerational thing has been happening in the society. Is it the advent of social media? What? I do not know, but it is some kind of ways where people think differently. And as you rightly said, yes, their minds are Now they do not understand who the real heroes are or what is the real problems we deal with. For them, it is more real and it is more social media led make believe world. I will uh, move to Mr. Harish Sairaman. You're very active on social media as well, but at the same time, you very deeply deal with some things like mindset and how our thinking implements the bigger roles in our life. I'm going to come back asking you the same question, where as Colonel Shergill said, young minds, impressionable minds, and the narratives that leads on to such kind of thinking. People can choose on either side whether they choose to stand for humanity or terrorism. What leads to that? I mean, why do these kind of things happen? And I mean, just share your thoughts around that, please.
So I think before I express, I would first like to definitely highlight that speaking about these things sitting over here is quite easy. I mean, because I've never been there on the front. I've never experienced what a lot of people have experienced. So I think my perceptions or thoughts would never be as strong as someone like the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, because they're out there. Because we also see a lot of people sharing a lot of comments. The emotions are super active, but then, as you rightly said, somewhere the awareness will have to go high. So, because the way I have looked at it is, I don't think any terrorist group or terrorism can exist without the backing of a supreme power. If you look at all countries and their intelligence, if they decide, I don't think terrorism can actually exist, which means there is somebody who is majorly profiting from what is actually happening. It
Mhm.
cannot exist without that. Now, without labeling, we cannot get into who and what. But if you look at this entire thing that has been happening, that has actually happened, there's somebody who's driving it and he's got they've got a very strong purpose in one way or the other. For people somewhere at the top, it's a very profitable deal for them in one way or the other. And there is a mass who is continuously hypnotized in one way or the other. So if we look at what's even happened right now, if the purpose was to create disturbance in India for a particular reason, I think they've been successful. I don't think the attack would have happened in Pahalgam with an assumption that India will not hit back, because the last two times India has actually shown that we would hit back, and in spite of it doing something like this, which means they wanted India to hit back in one way or the other. But if you look at the way even India has hit back, whatever is there on social media, I think India has hit back, communicating very clearly, saying that please stop. We can hit you and we can cause even more damage, but we want you to stop. So I think that's the way the India has really communicated, also showing that we are not weak, and that's extremely important. So
Absolutely.
today we are actually in a time where to protect humanity and peace, you've got to develop that power and become more and more powerful. Historically, also, if you look at it, India has never been a country who would like to capture other countries and dominate and show we are the number one. But that's never promoted. If you look at it, there would never be a promotion of India as a country that would not like to overpower or would like to capture other regions. Never came back saying that we helped Bangladesh initially, so we would want a part of Bangladesh. It was never there from that perspective. But then I think in this particular episode also, what's really happened, a lot of people would have taken back. So if it was meant to showcase the power of weapons, saying that our weapons are more superior, I think the job is done. If China wanted to portray that, they got it. If US wanted to portray that, they've got it. But I think India also uh, has to learn a lot from here. And somewhere the learning also comes in that if we have to protect our peace and humanity, we will have to grow stronger and become more powerful in one way or the other. I think India is
Absolutely.
definitely way stronger, way powerful, but I think it needs to get even more stronger in terms of progress, in terms of reach, in terms of education, in terms of awareness. And there would be a lot of countries which will be interested in disrupting and spoiling that growth in one way or the other. Because if you look at emotions behind all of these that's actually happening, it's the negative emotions. So if you look at emotions behind everything that has been happening, what we are talking about today, it's predominantly insecurity, it's predominantly fear, it's predominantly threat, and it's undoubtedly the emotion of control and dominance. So if we look at spirituality also, and if I go to the simple energy centers of chakras, when we talk about it, we always say the first three chakras are the basic foundation chakras, and the higher ones are more spiritual. And the first three is predominantly also animal chakras, like the root chakra is survival. The sacral chakra is procreation and reproduction and having more of your kind. And then the solar plexus is always territorial in nature. But we also say humanity is always beyond the first three chakras, because heart chakra is love and acceptance. Throat chakra is communicating for sharing love. And then it's all about visionary and then humanity at the highest level. So if you look at what's happening, it's predominantly the three chakras only. Dominance, wanting to be number one, wanting to attack others, having that superiority. So if you look at it, it's not ignorance. It's a perfect script run by somebody somewhere. And I don't think me sitting here can actually just say this is being done by XYZ country. I mean, some things are so obvious, some things are interpreted, and but this is something that's going to continue. It is definitely not a mistake. It's rather perfectly scripted for a particular cause, and a lot of people will continue to remain being a victim in one way or the other. So even if I purely look at Pakistan, I think they are definitely the victimizers, and they're also victims in their own way.
In their own ways, correct. In
They
some way.
will be controlled by other powers, and they are just being run by other powers in one way or the other. But then I don't know if that ship has actually sailed for them. But history clearly says being a friend with India will only benefit, because I don't think it has a lot of ulterior motive trying to put a loan on you and then control you in one way or the other, because we've seen that with Sri Lanka, we've seen that with Nepal, we've seen that with Bhutan, and it can coexist in a very beautiful way. If tomorrow that country would like to see that part of it, I think they will only benefit. Now, at a very different level, if we look at it, all of these predominantly happens with, again, those emotions. Like, I'm a hypnotherapist, and I usually tell people hypnotherapy is all about programming the subconscious mind. And if you look at typical hypnosis shows, the stage hypnosis, we can hypnotize people and make them believe that you are a chicken, or make them eat chili pretending that it's sugar, and they will not feel the spice also, which means you are in that kind of a trance. And sometimes people come and ask me that to get into trance, do you have to do like a pendulum or a relaxation method? And I tell them very clearly, if you are already in pain, you are already in trance. So if you're coming with a deep rooted pain, I don't have to do hypnosis induction, because you're already under a trance state. Now you will follow the command. And if you look at the core of all terrorist activities, they will either trigger pain or use your existing pain to hypnotize you and make you take action without thinking beyond. And that is where you can just go and bluntly kill. You can create riots. You can just do, and you're just hypnotized saying that there is something bigger that you will get. So in short, I think through education, awareness, people will have to be dehypnotized and rehypnotized with what is a good cause, and knowing that there is immense level of profitability also when you collaborate and coexist with the good qualities. But having said, can this get into world peace? The answer is no, because destruction is profitable for many people. Causing a lot of destruction is going to be profitable for a lot of people. To sell my antivirus, I'm going to create virus first. And once you are infected with virus, I can sell my antivirus and make myself very profitable. And that is going to be the format in one way or the other. So I think keeping humanity in mind, I think it's time for India to rise even faster, even stronger, and become extremely powerful, not to dominate, but just to tell people that you've got to think maybe 100 times before you even tamper with this country. But if there is love, we're always ready to collaborate, and that's been the theme. Of course, I think these are episodes where the country internally will also have to rethink and understand that fights within the country will have to literally go to a minimum, because there's already external fights happening. So to get into regional conflicts and other conflicts which are beneficial for some politicians, I think those things needs to stop, and everyone should look predominantly at going beyond and rising. And I think that's what is the perspective. And that's important, I guess.
Very true, very true. I brilliantly appreciate your perspective. That's amazing. I would ask again, Colonel Shashank Ranjan sir, with this perspective that he just shared, that in a hypnotic state, where pain is already there, and then the terrorist organizations probably use that to carry it out. You have served JNK, you have served in the Northeast sectors, and you have been in the ground working in these scenarios, and also with the, the other Maoist affected insurgent areas. How do you relate that with the reality that has been there, and what are the counter, actions that we as a country can take to fight
Yeah,
those?
yeah. Thank you so much. So basically, my initial remark, when I had talked about the people, it
Mm-hmm.
was about, the psyche which is prevalent in the society which I was talking about. I'm
Yes.
aware that there are, military measures, there are policy aspects of our government, of Pakistan government, etc., etc. But what is at the crux is, the psyche of the people, and what Harish ji was also mentioning in, different manifestation I wanted to basically bring out. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like we talk of deterrence, what we have done over last, the 4 5 days. We had done in 2016 surgical strikes. We had done in 2019 Balakot, and this time, we went several notches above. We broadened the footprint of our kinetic strike onto them, and it was more precise. It was more, effective and lethal, and with proof, which was probably, a gap during Balakot. But the question is, would this deter Pakistan? And my answer, and I'm wrong, is no, because it has to be what Harish ji was mentioning, the mindset. And how do you, so how, where do I start working from? What can I do? So that is why my emphasis on, the people, and make Pakistan irrelevant. Let's try doing it, because we have never done that with conviction. We have always been superficial about it. Own up the
Yes.
Kashmiris, own up the people who belong to that state, and let's see whether it works or not. Because every time we have, been trying the same thing and expecting, different results. This is what Einstein had called as insanity. So we are not, very obvious approach, which is the classical teaching, is that of people, at least if not 100%, because army, the armed forces, have always managed the situation in the valley or in the JNK. Like in Chhattisgarh also, in Bastar also, situation is managed. But the political outreach, the social outreach is always found, wanting, and then, things research, kind of.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah.
have to diversify in our thought, even while dealing with Pakistan.
Yes.
Economy, diplomacy, putting
Correct.
them, our effort to put them back into the FATF. There's so many measures, because
Yes.
kinetics will not, deter them. They will maybe strengthen their resolve to, fight back. The way
Correct.
statements are given, and I'm sure Harish ji will agree that this is not the time when, you can change the thinking or thought process of your adversary by kinetics. It has to be
Mm-hmm.
reaching out. We have resolved that every act of terror will be an act of war. Now, would it, I mean, do we want to be kept hostage to, one terrorist striking somewhere in Jammu or in Delhi or in Bangalore and saying that it's an act of war? So, these kinds of theatrics, we, for political reasons, get indulged in, and that is the problem. For Kashmir, for JNK, my feel is that we have to have an all-encompassing, a long-term approach, which includes military and other measures.
And
Military
other
should
measures.
military
Is
should
the
just
managing measure, and
supplement.
there should be a preventive and a foundational thing created in that. That
Yes,
the other.
like like in today's society, my last point, like in today's society, not only in Kashmir but all across, what Priya ma'am was mentioning, uh, the there is no civil society. I mean, the connect between the family and the government has gone. The civil
Correct.
society movement, which used to be there earlier, that has
Mm-hmm.
receded in its space. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the connect is breaking, and that's why the role models are changing, and that is across the society. The values are changing. So
Correct.
we got to reinstate those role models back by, outreach, which I was hinting at. Thank you.
Right. That's very true. Colonel Shergill, what are your thoughts about this? How can we, who are not in the defense forces, but we definitely have a role in the society today, how can we citizens, global citizens. How can we play a role in supporting our country, like how Colonel Ranjan just mentioned, like, not just managing, but actually taking that foundational step towards building the nation towards something where we become exactly how Harish said, like, we become powerful so that no nation ever thinks of, doing something wrong that they have done in the past. And I'm not saying when we speak about humanity, it's not that we talk about only peace and love, holding flags in our hand. No, we can take up the guns if we need to, but no one dares to mess with us. But at the same time, we create the society where it can be actually more foundationally in the right space and not just managing, like what we have seen.
Well, I think the one answer to that is nationalism. And one of the biggest examples of that is Israel. If you see Israel as a small country, I think the size of Israel would be smaller than some of our states as well. And you see the fierce love for the country, the nationalism, how self-sufficient they are in everything. Because why? Because they're threatened from all sides, right? They're threatened from all sides. All people, all countries around them are, looking to crush them if given an opportunity. But here is a country, India is buying defense equipment from Israel. That should just tell you, the level of expertise which they've reached. The most lethal intelligence agency in the world is known as the Mossad. Again, Israel. You have compulsory military duty for every citizen up to a certain age. That's what builds the love for the nation, and that's what builds the nationalism. That's what builds, builds the ethos for a country.
Correct.
I don't know if we can do it well, because obviously population and the numbers don't support us. While the government has started these proposals like the Agniveer and as such trying to get into that kind of a setup, but I don't think that's going to work unless and until it becomes a national policy, right? Unless and until we are willing to invest in our own people and doing it in a very transparent, corruption-free environment. I don't think that we would be able to reach that. We need that kind of an effort, starting from ground up, starting from schools, the education, as Priya ma'am was mentioning. There's such change. There is such a fundamental change which has happened already in just 10 years. I can go back another 10 years before that, when I was there in 2000, the thought process was completely different. Just to give an example, how different it was for the boys versus the girls. The boys wanted to be very honest, wanted the easy life. The girls were the ones who were working hard, they were struggling, studying, whereas the boys were more interested in threatening their parents and saying, look, you please don't trouble me, unless otherwise I will pick up the gun. So father would say, nahi, nahi, beta, kuch mat kar, tu chhod de, you enjoy life. Whereas the girl is studying, has achieved a certain level of professionalism, is still studying, still working hard. So it's become a kind of an ecosystem. And like I said, it's a vicious circle. It's a vicious cycle from which it's going to take a hell of a lot to get out of it. The mindset needs to change. You can't say that, oh, ye meri kismat mein likhi hai, or it's, I'm destined for it, so this is why it's happening. If that was the case, we would never have got independence because we had to fight for it, right? We had to actually become uncomfortable hugely. We had to suffer losses. Here, they're not willing to do that. Unless and until the local support, things change on the ground, it's not going to change, right? So I feel that that is the most important ground up from schools. The teaching needs to change. It needs to be more transparent. It needs to be more honest. It needs to be bereft of any kind of overtones, whether it is religious, whether it is political, whatever it is, right? So it needs to be pure education to bring up, minds, thought processes towards the nation.
Is it not true that, we feel that India as a nation has felt more empowered in the last decade than it has been before? Like when something happened way back, and these kind of attacks happened, the first best stand probably India took was, we are not going to play cricket with Pakistan. Those kind of things happened way back in the past, 20 years ago, if something happened. But India has been really empowered. I mean, I'm sure we have seen how things were when Pulwama happened, or even for the matter of fact, when Uri happened, the surgical strike and the Balakot attacks and everything, and even now, the strong way of, responding back to such threats. Is it not true that India is way more, the military has been way more empowered now?
Somebody else can pitch in. I think it's a holistic effort. One is, becoming economically stronger. That's most important. And then that in turn helps you to become militarily stronger as well. A lot of emphasis on, as they call it, Atmanirbhar Bharat. But, we have a say on the world table now, which we never had earlier. Each and a lot of, the economy. It flows from the economy, the opening up of the economy. We are becoming economically stronger. And obviously, militarily, we've always been good. Not only because of our technology, not only because of what we are buying from outside, but also because we are now developing a lot of our own weapon systems. We are opening it out to the foreign markets as well. We are a lot more open to investments coming into our own country, which wasn't the case earlier. So we have a say on the world table today. I think that's one of the major reasons why we are also able to take stronger military steps. No doubt a big change from what it used to be earlier. At least now nobody takes you for a soft state.
In this trait, which when you talk about being empowered or being economically much better than what we used to be earlier. So the common word which is used in this trait is that what happened in those 70 years happened in just 15, 20 years. So that might not be absolutely accurate, but of course we have seen, if you see various indicators, you know, sir has brought out certain aspects about it. So be it our economy, be it our industries in various domains across the world. So that is what has helped us, enabled us to reach at that stage which sir was just talking about, that we are recognized uh, kind of power in the world. Crux of the point is that we actually need to do much more than what is happening. So we have our challenges. Those challenges probably uh, at some point of time we have to understand that how to handle those challenges. And the trajectory which has started going up, my personal reading about that, it is just started moving. Actually, we woke up very late, and now since we have woke up and we've started doing things, it only has to gain more momentum, it has to gain more power, it has to gain more acceptability in the world arena.
Just ask this. Also, this is going to get a little controversial, but let's face the truth. So there has been a fact. In fact, even the defense minister of Pakistan did claim it on CNN that, US has been supporting, Pakistan so-called to fight terrorism, and it has been happening for the last 30 years since the 9/11 attacks has happened. And despite the fact that it was a make-believe scenario that you are going to fight terrorism, that same fund was probably used to fund terrorism. And that has been constantly going on over a period of time. And this has been constantly happening. Not only that, despite the world condemning the fact that, okay, whatever has happened in Pakistan should stop war, IMF funded 2.3 billion to Pakistan. And what is this whole thing like? What is that vicious circle that is happening? Despite the fact, I think as even Harish ji, you mentioned that it might, even though this is on the surface, there's a lot going on in the back. So whether it is other countries playing a role, or is it just the India-Pakistan issue? How is this impacting us in the long run? And how can we, as people from different, again from different professionals, global citizens, how can we bring this up so that this kind of vicious circle can stop or at least minimize? What can we do?
As I mentioned, it's always about dominance. It's always about control. And if people are operating from that level, it is so obvious that when a fund is given out to Pakistan from approval from United States, it's always to keep them under debt so that they are always there to follow orders and everything. So that's something. So there is a greater purpose. Although we know where probably the fund is going, but then it's serving a greater purpose for somebody else. And then I think if I have to just go down at a micro level, so if you look at it, I always tell people that what's happening at the macro level is also happening at a micro level. And that's one thing that we can all work towards in one way or the other. So, for example, at a global level, if US would like to be number one, it will try to do everything to keep that number one position. That's why a lot of times, even when, Priya spoke about this, at an education level itself, we are talking about nurturing more collaboration, nurturing more towards giving the best to other people rather than trying to just be number one. Because in the quest of trying to be number one, people might get into wrong actions because one would like to hurt others. So if I look at simple organizational context also, why would a lot of times organizations say, think about people first? I know you have your department, but that's also a part of your own organization. Everybody is human. So, but then there is escalation happening there. There is office politics that is happening there. Somebody is playing a game in one way or the other. So the games would continue to be played in one way or the other. And I don't think that's going to ever stop. So the only option, I think, what Major Rakeshji also mentioned, while we do talk about India is growing at a beautiful pace, but I think the pace is not enough, and fights like these are a major lessons in one way or the other, because we'll have to grow at a phenomenal pace. Maybe take Singapore as an example, and even if you look at China, who's been a phenomenal success story. I mean, of course, their mindset is very different, but if you just look at growth, it's been a phenomenal success story. And I think India definitely has the potential. And as he rightly said, we are just beginning in one way or the other. And I think that needs to show. I think a lot more beautiful minds have to continue working here in India and keep rising in a more positive way and become stronger. That's extremely important, I guess.
Of you, what would be your, parting words of inspiration, suggestion, advice to the listeners and to the audience? Colonel Ranjan sir, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Will not take much time. Firstly, picking up from where Harishji left. Harishji, you forgot to mention one, term, military-industrial complex, which is, the most profiteering agency in whatever and wherever it is happening. And this military-industrial complex based out of wherever we know the large chunk is where. These are the people who are pulling threads in policy making as well. I'm sorry in case I'm sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but that's a fact. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so they are. Second day was about nationalism, what Colonel Amitabh mentioned, and you also touched upon. We got to be slightly cautious here when we talk of nationalism, because the nationalism taken to beyond a limit gets into othering someone, and this othering someone has become a challenge in our country, which is affecting our internal order. And internal order, you had said in your opening remark, has to be secured to be strong for the external and enemy. So nationalism, yes, but with a pinch of salt, with a caution, because internal order of the othering drives nationalism into a different plane altogether. Vis-a-vis Pakistan, I feel we have to have a long-term perspective, and so long-term covert policy would be in order vis-a-vis Pakistan, and it has to be long-term, because I mean we have connected what General Asim Munir said 5-6 days before Pahalgam. I think exactly 6 days before Pahalgam, and lot many people are connecting what Azim Munir said to Pahalgam, but that cannot be the fact. Pahalgam was not planned, 6 days in advance before the thing was executed. It may have been a dog whistle, but Pahalgam, the way it was conducted, it was a military precision, and our complacency, what Major Rakesh also was mentioning, was one of the factors. Nothing is happening in the area, so commanders at the ground level tend to become lax, and this exactly what had happened here. So as far as governance is concerned, as far as reaching out to people is concerned, unless we strengthen and empower the grassroots of democracy, the people will not feel stakeholders, and alienation will continue because of the historical baggage which we've been carrying. And lastly, about the size of economy, we are third large or fourth largest, fifth largest, whatever. But most important is development, of cold steel of defense, more allocation, of budgetary allocation for defense preparedness. That is one, and per capita income, per capita GDP, is more important than the size of economy. That is all I had. Thank you so much, Shrravonii, and all the fellow panelists.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Any last words from you, Vijay Sharma, sir?
Well, I would like to echo the words that the time is less and the work is more. Be it economy, be it social development, basic development, and even in terms of our strength in the defense, be it equipment, be it training, be it understanding the new mechanism evolving in the defense sector, and then taking it really at a good pace. uh, this make in India, made in India, whatever you say, it has to really again, I'll say that it's a very fledgling stage. It's a very initial
Mm-hmm.
stage. It has to really have a strong foot on ground. It has to be strengthened in a major way. Once people start participating themselves, it is one is we all know this, like we hear things and then we do things. There's a difference between hearing and experiencing in life. Once the masses they start experiencing that kind of experience, their participation grows, their level of engagement grows, and India still resides in rural belt. We see only few pockets. Mumbai is gone up, Delhi is gone up, Bangalore become tech hub. This and 4 or 5 names are there. That's all. Real India still resides in the rural belt. So that has to be,
Empowered more experientially.
empowered. And I'm
Experiential
not saying that
learning.
nothing is happening.
Yeah.
In fact, quite a bit has happened, but that needs to pick up pace. And when this happens, then you will see the sense of nationalism automatically coming up. I'm not saying that it will be like Israel.
But
That's never
still
possible
much
here.
better and much improved than how
Yes,
it is.
yes.
So, experientially learning and bringing that awareness, how do you suggest, from the grassroots levels, we can start doing that towards a society so that we can actually support our country, our nation, the way we really should be doing?
In school level, what happens is we are not allowed to use certain words. We have to, and present stage, we have to be very careful with our words. Like we cannot use the word terrorist or terrorism. Okay. So we try to tell them that people who are trying to harm us, the soldiers are protecting us from them. Okay. So this is how we are trying to make the students understand. And I also tell them the stories of two people whom I know from for a very long time. Mrs. Bandyopadhyay, you already mentioned about her in the beginning of the program. Her husband has fought two wars, 1965 and
71.
1971. Yeah. And her son was captain, and he was posted in Jammu and Kashmir, where few months after his posting, he lost his life due to, I think, Mujahideen. Um, so I tell them about Captain Anirban Bandyopadhyay so that they can associate with someone whom they know, because Mrs. Bandyopadhyay had come to our school on Independence Day. And recently, this Pahalgaon attack, one of our students lost her father, and they stay in our neighborhood. So this, I saw that this has shaken up the students a lot because they knew her very well, and this entire incident we discussed in the assembly. We met the family, and another thing is in the news channels all over the media, we hear that it is only Hindu, Muslim, they were asked and they were shot, etc. But actually, what I heard from this girl, Shivangi, and her mother is that they also saw the ID card. And over there, that day, mostly government officials were there, central government. And when they saw the central government, he's a central government employee, they said, "Ye to Modi ka aadmi hai," and they shot him on the head. So it was not only about which community they belonged to, but also where they were working. That was also an issue. So as Sir was saying about implementing certain things at school level, I feel NCC should be compulsory. at school level, NCC should be compulsory. Now it is optional. Some schools are having in their curriculum, some are not, and there are parents who are giving such excuses like my daughter cannot stand in the heat, etc., etc. So this only some people will go and fight and protect us, and some will enjoy life. It should not be the case. Let everyone have some idea of what that life is.
Yeah.
This is what I feel.
Very true. And I think what NCC also brings is a sense of discipline. I think that is the core thing which Colonel Shergill, you were talking about Israel, is discipline, because, even for their IDFs, the kind of martial arts they teach and all, whatever we probably have learned here as well, it is all based in discipline. So I think as a society, if I can sum it up, I think what we are talking about is to have that sense of information and to have that sense of discipline as to why we are talking about it. Because in the army, they say the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. I think that is the kind of understanding we also apparently call ourselves civilians should also understand, that we are all responsible towards our nation. And it doesn't mean whether we serve in uniform or not, but we are all serving our nation in some way or the other. So thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
I personally feel actors should be called actors, soldiers should be called heroes.
I agree. Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think it's very easy when they say I was at a shoot, what an actor means and what a soldier means are totally different. There are no retakes in real life. So I think there's something.
Actor can have 100 retakes, but soldier faces the bullet only once.
Yes.
Anybody who goes through the video, I think there's only one request. At the end of the day, there is a purpose. After going through this, also let it not be just a piece of information, because all these wonderful people, you've managed to get us here. And then I think each one should just think that with an episode like this, what can we learn from it and how can we just become a better person? I think it should serve that one small shift that each one of us can make. We've seen the pandemic, we've seen something else right now. We don't know what else we're going to see, but I think with every episode, if we can just learn, respect people who are really out there, and I think that's what is really needed. So
very true. So thank you so much, all of you. You have been wonderful with your, immensely insightful thoughts. I'm going to reach out and connect with each one of you again, of course, individually. And thank you all for being here. Thank you so much. This has been really, really nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks. Thank you.